Cool. Okay. So I've not got a massive amount planned for this, so I figure I'll talk through what my job experience is, what my learning experience is, to get a context of who's talking, and then take it from there. I'll either start rambling about different stuff that I think is kind of helpful to people looking to be software developers, or I'll keep an eye on the chat. If there's any kind of questions, just drop them in. Doesn't need to be anything kind of on topic or whatever. Yeah, I will start off there. So, my education was in games programming. So, I've got a BSc in games programming from Derby. Did pretty well at that, but ultimately decided not to go into the industry. So, no industry like experience there inside the games industry, but as we talk today, hopefully you'll kind of see the threads and from your own experience and what you've heard, presumably, from other chats, you will get a bit of a feel of how everything kind of just relates together, and software is software basically. So if that makes sense. So as far as work experience, I've got a year working on the shop software that Subway use, or a lot of the Subway shops use. So all of like the inventory and staff management stuff. 3 years then working on psychometric assessment tools. So if ever you applied for a job at Boots or EE, I worked on the assessments that you would have taken as part of that, both the like skill based to make sure you can count, and also the psychological tests to make sure you're not dangerous, I guess, or a free thinker in some cases. So after that, moved on to insurance adjustment software, which is incredibly not exciting to talk about, but yeah. So that's all to do with whenever you'd file an insurance claim with Aviva, and if you mutual, quite a few other customers, they would sometimes send a person out to whatever site the accident happened and just have a look. So if you had like a leak, or someone came and did some vandalism on something, they would come just make sure that everything lined up with what you were saying. So 2 years on that, and then where I am at the moment is financial compliance software, which is potentially even more exciting than loss adjustment software. So if any banker wants to make a kind of trade at all, or they want to send £1 million to, the Trump administration or something as a gift, there's a process for approving that. They have software, and I work on that kind of stuff. So one of the big customers we recently got was NatWest, but I think there's quite a few banks that use that software. So yeah. Yeah, that's kind of where my work experience is at. As I say, it sounds more boring, but very much that progression is just mainly a progression of earning more money, basically. So the longer I've been working, I've basically had a increasing amount that I would have to take to switch a job, and a lot of those earlier jobs, they just don't really have very much margin, very much profit, so there's not a massive amount that they will give to their employees, and that's kind of what's it, door slam. That's kind of the first thing I would say as like a piece of advice is, if you're looking to get into the industry, like into software development, then just when you're applying for jobs, remember that your experience is a lot more valuable than what the company can offer you. Even if you're a junior and you're starting out, quite often you're giving your services at a discount for the for the ability to learn on the job kind of thing. And these companies, they can rake in a lot of money, and you want to make sure that they are raking in a lot of money, so that even if you're only going to get 0.001% of that as an everyday worker or something, that is quite a decent chunk for you, and that there's growth in those companies for you. Yeah, that's that. So nothing in the chat yet, so I'll just start reaming off kind of what the day-to-day of just a regular software developer is, what they do in like comparisons as to what you might experience in university. And so university was very much for me project based, where you would get here's X, Y, and Z, deliver that by the end of term, or here's a slightly smaller chunk of work, deliver that in a few weeks kind of thing. And really the way that a lot of companies will organize themselves is different to that. So they will have, bearing in mind that my experience here is all from established companies, but they will have a roadmap that comes down from the top. So a CEO will decide that the direction of the company is we're going to make a new product, or there's this new market we want to expand into, or there's this feature set we already have which isn't very good, so we want to change that. And they will feed that back down to the varying layers of managers, and really at like the development lead level, or like the like head of IT or whatever it is, at that kind of level, they'll start looking at, okay, what teams do I need to manage that? And they will kind of assign, first of all, they'll resource however much they need, so they'll hire people in, they'll get a number of developers that they need. So say you've got 100 developers, you'll break that potentially into teams of 5 or 6, and you'll have potentially multiple teams working on like one product at a time, but you'll try and isolate them down to work on a single thing. So example of where I'm working at the moment, what I'm working on right now, it's the users side. So we're working on storage of users, like logging people in, and like unifying multiple products into one with one cohesive users system. And it's one very tiny piece of the pie, and it's the day-to-day thinking of, I've only got to work on this one little thing, and you work in a small team so that everybody can understand what's going on at any one time. And yeah, that's the day-to-day. Yeah, I think I covered that. So then a bit more onto kind of what you would be working on. So if you talk generically, a lot of companies are in a position where they've got existing products that have been out in the market for a while, existing like tech stacks that they've all been working on, and the general ideology there is that they pay like an upfront cost to host that kind of thing. Like they'll build these servers and put them in these data centers that they manage, and they are moving on and away from that and more towards thinking about, okay, what's the overhead of having your own hardware, and hiring people to maintain that hardware, and scaling that up with new customers could be quite often the biggest cost to the company. So they'll be thinking, okay, well, what if we switch over to cloud? So that's been a big push at quite a few of the companies I've worked at. Is they've all been pushing towards cloud and switching away from the idea of hosting your own kind of servers and more towards the scalable side of cloud. If that makes sense. So the general idea there is that a lot of the work that I've seen done, a lot of the work I've experienced has been taking these existing products, which are kind of big and chunky, and breaking them down into little pieces. A lot of the way that cloud works is you all have, if you boil it down, it's breaking your code down into tiny little pieces and then having the scalability to run those tiny little pieces of code as much as you need, and having that scalability there. So say if you have a week and nobody's sending emails or something, you would just not have any cost for your email system or whatever. Yeah. Speaking more to that, that leads on to kind of like the way you do that is with microservices as well. So again, microservices, the idea of breaking stuff down into tiny little pieces. You focus on concepts of like sending emails, sending notifications. You get the idea of like getting users, searching for users, and you build your functionality into tiny little modules like that, and then again you can scale those. And yeah, you break them up like that. It also leads to your other buzzword in the industry, which is automation testing. So by breaking stuff down into little repeatable chunks, you can write lots of unit tests for that, where you can make sure that the quality of what you're producing is still fine. So you want to make sure if you've got like a process to update the first name of a person, you would have you'd want to make sure that you're calling the database to update the first name of the person, and you'd want to make sure that it was like sending any notifications to do with first names being updated. But you may not want to boil down to like the level of, can I connect to the database? Can I send an update kind of thing? And that's why by breaking stuff down into those cohesive chunks, you can then unit test easier as well, because you don't have to unit test the same thing over and over again. It makes your code very maintainable. And you can integration test as well, which is the more traditional way of having a tool that your testers work on, where they write scenarios based off of business logic. Like, as a user, I want to be able to update my first name. So if my name is incorrect, it can be fixed in the system, something like that. And yeah, that's kind of it. That's the Ream. That's the what I've worked on. What I kind of like. What I work on day to day, what you can expect as a software developer, top level. So anyone want to boil down into any specific details, any questions? Like I say, does not need to be specific or on topic. I can answer pretty much anything. Have I had any experience in games? Yes. So for my university course, we had a couple games projects. Well, it was games programming, so everything was games. Just to preface this with saying that when I was learning about games, my graphics module, one of the graphics modules I did, our lecturer said the holy grail of graphics rendering was ray tracing, and if ever we got ray tracing, that would be like the best thing ever. Um, so that was clearly before the RTX cards came out and ray tracing became a bit more prevalent. But apart from that, the university I went to had a couple modules where we would work in small teams with some artists and go make a game, and then we would have that kind of shown. There was a big showcase at the end of the year as like a final year kind of thing, and we had experts come in. We had some playground guys come in and kind of judge, like, okay, what have you got? Is it any good? And turned out that what we had was not very good. So that was one of my main reasons of looking outside the games industry. Do I have any advice or tips for programming portfolio? I think the biggest thing outside of games, as you start it, is your CV. So I don't really think I've ever seen when like whenever there's been interviews going on and like people were like, hey, have a look at the CV kind of thing. Nobody ever has really taken the time to click forward onto a portfolio page kind of thing. It's always been with programming, you can kind of get a sense of what someone can do based off of what they put in their CV. It's very much a logical thing. Like, have you got any experience with C#? And if you don't have any experience with C# and you're a .NET house, and all that you've done is Python, then they will obviously be able to tell just from looking at that CV. They would just go, well, this is no good. They've got no experience in C#, and we're a C# house kind of thing. Leading on to that, it's very much. I say it's very much like a case of people want to know what you can do, not necessarily what you're like. So some I know that some kind of more, I don't know how to phrase this very well, but when you're working in companies, they can quite often want you to have a good smile on you and have a good business chat or a good sales chat or something. But I think with programming, it could be very relaxed. Like, personality wise, you can be a bit weird. Should you not try to build up a portfolio on GitHub? Absolutely, you should. You should absolutely try and build up a portfolio on GitHub. I think I would say if you're working in GitHub, one great thing to do would be to try and work on some open source projects and then put that in your CV as like your, hey, I do like this work on open source projects and stuff. Again, with the games industry, talking out my butt a bit, where I'm saying people don't look at portfolios. People don't look at portfolios for the kind of jobs that I've been working at, the kind of companies I've been working at. So in the games industry, you'll want to, actually get some advice from someone there that there might be a lot more interest in seeing what you can do. But I think the important thing to bear in mind is it's a game of volume quite often, where if you've got 500 applicants, if I can look at a CV and I can instantly go like, I can remove this person from the pool because they've not got this language experience, or I can remove this person from the pool because they just don't have the kind of experience that I'm looking for, or they've got loads and loads of spelling mistakes, just the basic stuff, or they've got like 5 pages here and they're not really getting to the point. Um, I've seen a CV kind of discarded because it had word art on like page one, and that can kind of sound like a bit harsh, but like I say, it's a game of numbers, and with programming, sometimes people can kind of present themselves as not what they are, not what they're good at. So, yeah. Uh, that being said, if you want to share some like example code or um, like a CV or something, happy to look through it. Happy to give you some feedback and yeah. Do I have any programming jobs that you'd really love to do but haven't had a chance yet? I would like to go back into the games industry, but I'd say very much it has a bit of a PR problem, and uh, to the capacity I want to go back in, I don't want to kind of have that be my job. I kind of, you know, I look for that. I look at that as kind of like that's a hobby I want to start pursuing, and I'm working with a group of friends, kind of thing. As far as like, it sounds weird, but quite often the things that are exciting about the jobs that I work on are not. They're not the industry. So the exciting things about what I do at the moment is that I've got a complete open playing field to write something from scratch, write cloud architecture from scratch, and have a really big impact in the company, and help out there and see that growth. So it kind of sounds weird to say that maybe, but yeah. When you're applying to a job, what are some good projects to present? So uh, I think again I go back to the language that you're working in, right? So it's neat if you've done like Discord bots or something, and you've done that in JavaScript, and you're happy with that. But if you're, applying to a database administrator kind of job where it's all back end, it's not super relevant. So you'll get bonus points for having even just having having personal projects and working on them. But it is all about like, you kind of find yourself going down a path in development, and you kind of want your work to reflect that. So if you're going to do front end work, if you're going to do loads and loads of JavaScript, and you want to work on front end web dev, then try and focus your projects on front end web dev. And quite often with that, you'll want to be looking at like the visual side of that. And a good thing to do is kind of think about all of the different business cases there. So uh, that's another good side of the project, is to think about like who your like customer is when you're building this project. So with web dev, something that quite often comes up is like, so do you have to cater to blind people? Like what's your accessibility level going to be at? Is it something that, do you need to show off like some kind of fancy technology like micro front end, or or like maybe like a WebGL kind of project where you're focusing on like the technical side, or do you want to try and do something visual? Like, are you trying to purvey the like you can make something that looks really really cool because uh, you're catering to different markets there. Um, all right, next one is programming's intimidating. I have a little experience in C# for applications, but I want to get over my fear of programming. 100%. The biggest thing is that there are just not enough developers, right? The market is crazy. Even for like junior positions, some of my earlier jobs where you didn't need to be very good at programming, we would see like 6 months lead time, maybe more, on like just getting someone in. And they weren't necessarily like going to be good at the job, but I think that's something that you should really consider is companies need developers and they are willing to do a lot. They are willing to put up with a lot. When you're a junior programmer, you should need a senior programmer or another developer just with you a lot of the time, showing you kind of like, this is how the code works, this is how you work in our product, and like guiding you through the stories. And that junior developer role is a very very low bar. I think if you know C#, you are probably good enough to take on that junior developer role and have that guidance, that one-on-one. And yeah, it's important to just, it's something I see a lot is people coming in to programming and kind of being like, I can't like architect this system from scratch. I can only work on one little project. I'm nowhere near good enough. But it's just not true. You can enter this industry at a very low level, a very junior level, and you can learn. And it will take you, even out of university, it will take you a year or two to get good. It took me a year or two to get good. Um, and anytime I see anything more than that, I'm always shouting like, man, this junior developer is amazing. They're like able to do work on their own, because it's quite rare for someone to come into the industry with like the kind of ability to not introduce bugs and like be able to work independently like that to a massive degree. So yeah, that's my advice. Get a job, get a job as a junior developer. Make sure that you're getting paid enough, that you're living comfortably. Don't take a tiny amount of money because the company is not doing well and they can't really afford developers, but they need someone. Don't take those jobs. Make sure that you're earning enough. Take that junior role and forgive yourself for your mistakes. Know that you're going to make mistakes and just lean on the experience. There is my advice. Flip side, what's my favorite project so far? It's probably not the one I'm working on right now. It's the project that I'm working on so far. That I've enjoyed working on so far. It's a very interesting question because quite often I don't enjoy what I'm working on until I solve it. I fix the problem. So like, it can be a bit of a roller coaster as a programmer. You will be in a low of like, man, this is a really difficult problem to solve, or like something's just not working. And then it's the high of solving that problem, which is what I really enjoy. So if that makes sense, I've kind of not talked about any specific project. I just wrote a way of passing files in a highly scalable way. That was my last project. That was fun. So we'll go with that. Any advice on how to find good open source projects to put on my GitHub, and any advice on how to plan / find a good personal coding project? I think it's good to ask yourself what you enjoy doing as a programmer, what languages you enjoy, what experience you've had that you've not had. If you've not got very much experience, just maybe try and broaden a bit. Like if you've only ever worked in like C sharp, maybe try some C++, or try some Java, try some JavaScript, Google programming languages, top programming languages, work your way down the list, try each one kind of thing, and figure out what you like about each one. Again, what's good is thinking about it kind of like from a business perspective. So a lot of programmers, you can definitely get by with just kind of like, here is the work in front of me, like I'm going to work on that. But finding yourself a gap that you're trying to fill, figuring out who your customers are, for that, what those customers want, and servicing those customers. Think of given, when, thens for like as much of that work you want to do. So given I am, it would be a good one. Given I am chatting in a Discord call, when I can't unmute my microphone, then it would be nice to have. It would be good to have I want a way of communicating via text chat or something. Would be somewhere near the vagueness that you probably see for Discord with the in chat discussion. So just try and think of real people, like with a real problem, and writing down that in a given, when, then format. Yeah, that's kind of the project management side of that, and the more you progress out of the junior into the regular, into the senior, then the architect and the like tech lead kind of like roles, the more you're thinking about the business side and the people side, and it's something you're looking at like really far forward. Like I said, your barrier to entry is very low, I would say, but really as you're working through your career, that's how you progress is by thinking about the why a bit more. But like I said, like you junior developers, you when you're starting off, you just don't worry about being good. You will get the guidance kind of thing. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that answered. Again, remember, this is industry. This is like enterprise software, enterprise in quotes, because enterprise. So like I say, with games dev, you might want to be thinking differently. Instead of programming languages, you might want to be thinking about like niches more, like I'm great at graphics, or I'm great at like game logic, like blueprint kind of thing, or something like that. What should someone expect when applying for a programmer job? That's the best process to prepare for that. So I think absolutely the first thing you'd probably find is as soon as you set up a LinkedIn. I think a lot of programming works via LinkedIn, by the way. So having a LinkedIn is very, very big. Having a LinkedIn profile is very big. Is you will have one or two paths. You will either get reached out to by a cold calling kind of recruiter who will, probably have a bot or something spanning all of LinkedIn for programming stuff, programming related applicants that they can chase, and you'll go through them, and they will probably have an idea of like what specifically that role, what the interview is for like that. or you're going to be searching for that yourself, like maybe you want to work for Microsoft or something, so you apply to the Microsoft website. Every company is going to be different, but generally speaking, it's going to be it's going to be layers of filtering, right? So you're going to go through a first layer of either someone just quickly looking at a CV, or someone looking at like a bunch of CVs and, like I said, just filtering them out, like not this guy, not this guy, not this guy. Or if you got a bit more automated about that, some companies will have like just a basic programming test at the start. Quite often those will be in like pseudocode, like not in any particular programming language, but like you just need to talk in brackets and stuff. Just need to express some kind of basic knowledge about programming. That's your filtering. And then you're going to get onto a level of more of a personalized assessment past that first layer of filtering and a discussion point. So you get on a call and you'll have like a developer or two there, or maybe a developer and like more of a HR person or something, and you'll just have a chat about generally like just making sure that you understand like what the trends are, what's good practice kind of thing, stuff like that. And then past that second phase of like your actual interview, you're gonna have like generally like a more of a customary, like here's a chat with like CEO or like head of IT or development manager or something, where they just kind of get you on a call and make sure you're not like I said with the psychometric assessments, make sure you're not like unstable or too unstable, because like I said, they need people. So they're willing for a level of it. But that's generally more of a formality kind of thing. As far as like the actual questions that you get and like breakdown of that, it varies. Sometimes they'll even, like for that second phase, they might even bring you in to like an office for like a day or something, where you get Lego blocks and work in small teams, and they look at you and go like, that one person there is really taking a back seat and not really doing much, and that one there is a real good leader there. It varies, but it's generally like not super in depth, if that makes sense. And quite often, if you don't do well, or you don't feel like you did well, it's the conversation around it, like why didn't you do well, like what did you struggle with, what do you think you would do better next time. You can always kind of analyze as long as you're analyzing what you're doing. They know that these tests are not very easy sometimes, and people are stressed and they may not perform very well, but it really is like really is sometimes the discussion point. And something I would say as well is for your first like 2, 3, 5 assessments, if you don't do very well, don't worry about it, just learn from them, and do well at the next one. And there are so many jobs out there, and I don't think people even really, after a couple of years, I don't think people even really look at my degree. I got a 2-2 university. I don't think that really holds me back any, just from now having that previous experience and the conversations I have with people. So you don't even really need to come out of university with a really, really high grade kind of thing, or anything like that, for your long-term career kind of thing. So that's that. Yeah, probably rambled too much. Quickly, open source libraries compatible with Unity that get development into Unity easier. No. Sorry. I think one thing I would say, Ari, like Unity for programming is it's worth like doing a bit more research if you're going to dig into Unity as to how many people are actually using Unity versus Unreal, and what kind of level you want to be working at with, like, are all the big studios kind of using C++, because traditionally that's what was used and they're still holding on to that, versus the C#, which has a bit more of a reputation of being like a bit slower. That's not to say anything specific. I think I would just have a look at that. Have a look at what people are using, what engines people are using, what languages and stuff. If that makes sense. C# is great for enterprise stuff though, because it's so easy and it's so reliable to work with. But yeah. Sorry. Don't want to. Yeah, again, I'll preface. I've never worked at a studio, so talk out my butt a bit whenever I say anything about games. But that was the discussion when I was learning. Okay, cool. I think we're at time, which has coincided with the end of one of my rambles. So it's lovely chatting. Hopefully, I was somewhat helpful to people. Like I say, if anyone ever wants a review or something, just grab me. Discord is probably easier because you can all see my tag, but LinkedIn, whatever. Any kind of like code reviews, or if you want any like opinions on stuff, if it's even something I'm not super familiar with, I'm happy to run through it with you and maybe learn with you and ask questions and rub a duck a bit. So yeah, feel free to reach out over anything.